Brick Market over in Trempealeau County.
Yeah. Some of the windows are clean. Tire water is built like this. Each one will water, 3 to 4 different paddocks. I can water off of it. Pipes just trenched in the ground, shallow, 20 inches deep probably. Drain it out in the fall back to the drainage ditch.
Is it pressurized? Inside of the
Yeah, it's hooked to my well pump at home in the yard.
And how deep is your well?
60 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a float in the bottom, right in the bottom of the tank there. There's a high flow fill.
There's a tank in there and then you just put a tire around it? Or is that
The
like
tire is the tank.
Oh.
What's in the bottom?
Concrete.
Concrete in
Yeah,
the bottom?
yeah.
You poured it right on there?
Yeah, I actually called the Ready Mix to have them come out.
Sealed pretty good then.
It did,
Sell,
yeah.
Sell them like that?
No, I put it together. They'll give you the tires because they want to get rid of them.
Is your PEX buried then all the way through, or is it laying on top?
Buried all the way down to
How deep?
about 20 inches. All the way down to the drainage ditch. And the drainage ditch, I have quick couplers. I can take it apart in the fall. And that's all
Do you have to blow it empty, or is it just
I don't. You can hear it. It sucks. I mean, you can hear it. You can put your hand over it. It's, yeah.
Now, how long have you had these waters like this?
These have probably been in 15 years, probably. Time goes fast, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's the handyman jack do? Help level as things move?
Yeah, I need to do some maintenance. The soil wears away. Well, actually, I let it run over, which is bad because then that just erodes the soil. And
They get a wet spot, they gotta stay in there.
and my sprayer man told me, asked me one day if I had a handyman jack, and I said I did, and he says throw it away. So that's where mine lives now. As he told me that with a speech problem because his tongue was busted open.
From the handyman jack.
Yeah.
Dave calls it a widowmaker.
Yeah.
So a lot of this ground out here I have outwintered on in the last 3-4 years. That green valley you're looking at behind the wagon was last year's outwintering. And those spots where it's kind of that high, it's a grass, but isn't that's
Barnyard grass.
fall panica, isn't it, Larry?
Probably.
I think so. Those are the spots that I deemed that I must have overdid it.
Did you bale graze on?
I rolled it out. Yeah. Yep.
You mean by overdid it? They
Bless
just
you.
trampled it more.
Well, yeah, or I put too much down there.
Okay.
So,
Choked it out. Okay. Yep.
well, no, it's just excess nutrients, more than what the soil can deal with.
And how many head did you have up there, John?
80 head for probably 80 days. I don't know.
Okay.
Good part of the winter.
So you kind of pick a paddock for the winter.
Yep.
and that's-
Yep.
And then what did you do to assist in the recovery, or did you just let it go?
I just let it go. The cattle were on it late this spring, still from the outwintering, when the rest of the grass started to recover. So it got set back a little bit there. So then it got to be late with the rain delay. 25th of June we made hay on there, and this is the regrowth.
Did they calve up there?
No.
Okay.
No. And this hill over here did the same thing, maybe 2 winters consecutively before that. And last spring I seeded that in and swore I was never going to see that soil again because I had to till it to get it smoothed out a little bit. Then the drought hit, nothing grew. And then when it did rain, I had giant rag as tall as a tractor cab because of all the excess nutrients that I had out there, and I don't know. So last fall, I no-tilled winter rye into it just to try and handle that nutrients. And then this spring I grazed that twice. And I'm just letting it do what it's gonna do.
Last year was hard on pastures. All the way around because no rain, everything most likely got overgrazed and the plants didn't have a chance.
Right.
Open winter,
Yeah.
I mean, we'd never had more than just a few inches of snow.
Yeah. And then the piece to the south of this, up along the woods there, on the left, that was winter grazed or bale grazed 2 years. And last year when we had our drought, my friendly John Deere dealer stopped in one day. And we're standing in the yard visiting, everything's brown. I said, just take a glimpse quick across this side of the farm. What do you see? It's the greenest. And right away, he picked out that field. So it made it more drought tolerant too.
Do cattle water out here too? Or does that water, do you just let it run over, or how do you?
Yeah, drain it in the winter.
So where are they gonna go? All the
They have to come back to the yard. Yeah, that's what makes this area easier to do the winter grazing on, is they can access the water. I've got other places where I'd like to do it, but haven't quite figured out how to get them watered. And I did split that. You can see the line up that hill. I run a fence up there and grazed one half and then the other half. I put my, I had some first calf heifers that I ran with the cows that I shouldn't have. They didn't look very good this spring, and I split them off before calving, and they went on that hill, just those 15, 20 head of heifers, and they really changed condition in a hurry, even though they were heavy with calf, but there was nutrients there. They come along.
They're pretty tough critters, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. Alrighty, Mitch.
I'm just gonna say
Back to the yard.
that if you go for that tire up in the south side of Eau Claire, the big tire dealer's up there, and they'll happily give you that tire. You're gonna end up cutting the sidewall out with your chainsaw. Get the tire that has the nylon cord in it, not the steel belted cord in it. Because you don't get to bring back the steel belted cord because your chainsaw doesn't like it. So get the nylon cord, because they have them.
Alrighty. Back to the yard, and then we're going to go down the valley a good quarter mile to the left. Hey, April, early April.
Glad to see you got flies too.
Yeah, I got lots of them.
This week, oh, there was kind of nice for 2 days.
Established one. It's a reclaimed civil pasture is what I'm calling it. When I was a dairy farmer, if I couldn't grow hay or corn on the ground, I didn't care about it. I let it all grow up in brush. Larry and I spent 10 days one fall and bulldozer and a skid loader and cleaned it all out. You couldn't see through here, hardly even walk through this. And that was probably 4 years ago.
What kind of grass came, John? You didn't seed it?
I did seed it, yeah. I did. First 2 years I had a beautiful crop of clover. Now that's gone away. I kind of asked for recommendations on what to plant, and well, how about orchard grass? I drilled it. I can't recall. I think it was tilled.
Better side of the valley. It's alarm because it's running slow. It might be.
When this was first established, and it was solid red clover, and I was nervous about grazing it, and the cows were real close here. So I'm like, well, I got to get them full, and I got to make sure it's dry, and they don't get out very often, but one morning I woke up and they got out.
Oh boy.
And they were in there. Everything was fine.
Just don't send them in hungry.
It was wet.
Yeah.
They must have been hungry. They got out. This is a line fence right here. This property now I rent from Scott. And I trenched in water. I don't know, some of you maybe can see my silos to the northwest there, behind that birch tree. So I trenched in water from there. It's 1,800 feet. 1,800 feet from there to this tank. Then I dropped a line down in the valley. If you maybe seen that blue tank where the cows were now, that's another 700 feet. And then I shot it out here another 700 feet. There's a pallet out there on top of that hill. You can see something dark there.
You need anything special for water pressure?
Screwdriver.
Oh, turn her up. What do you got?
Turn it up.
80?
No, I'm getting by with like 67.
It says you're 992 feet. We'll check at the house.
Without turning it up, I couldn't get water out to that point unless, you know, if the pressure gauge was at top end at home, then I'd get water. If it wasn't, I wouldn't get water. And this year I turned that up, so I got water out there all the time.
That's a lot of water to go through, isn't it?
There's a lot of water in that, and it's 1.25 inch pipe.
Oh, yeah. So that's a
Big one, big volume.
I was buying supplies. I have those quick couplers. You just stick the hose in this fitting in the ground, and you got water. You take it out, and it stops the water. It's real nice. I was buying those from Garish. Jim Garish has a American Grazelands fencing and water supplies. And I called there to order some of this stuff, and I had some questions. And I wasn't totally trusting the guy that was salesman, you know. I said, we got somebody else I could talk to about this? And he says, well, you can call Jim. I'm like, Jim?
Yeah.
Jim Garish? Yeah.
Jim, you've talked to him at meetings.
And I've listened to him on YouTube hours and hours. So he gives me the number, and I dial it, and they go, this is Jim. I'm like, sure enough, it is. And anyway, he talked me into, I was going with an inch pipe, but he's like, how high, how many cows, you know, how far? He talked me into the 1.25 inch pipe, and it's great that he did. Because I ran an inch and a quarter here, but then I ran an inch out here, and I couldn't get water. So then I replaced that with the 1.25 inch, and then I did. So, yeah, I don't think I'd have had success with an inch. And then I just took that inch pipe and dropped that down in this valley because I knew it would take water downhill.
Right. Sure.
Yep. This is a 50-acre piece that we just drove through. There's probably 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 on that one.
Are those 8 or 9 big paddocks that you subdivide, or do you just move them through?
That's pretty about as small as they get. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thatch. Is this seed or no?
Take a whiff. Take a whiff. Pass that around. Oh, there's folks here who haven't. If I had my glasses on, to me that looks like orchard grass seed.
Yeah. It should be as ripe as it was.
Yeah, that's seed.
Oh, you're supposed to pass that around. Why don't anybody else want shit?
And this is what you want. You want crumbly chocolatey cake. Right, Briar? Where's Briar? Briar, get on in here. This is...
Does it taste like chocolate cake?
Smells like earth, just like that cow pie piece that you're passing around for people to smell. See, if you don't mix...
I want to smell that.
Yes, you do want to smell it.
It's supposed to smell like what, chocolate cake?
No, it's going to smell like earth. And the thing of it is, cows do not defecate and urinate in the same place. And if you do composting, even for household waste, right, you got to have a carbon-nitrogen ratio to get your compost to heat. Right?
Right.
And so when we put manure in a slurry, we make an anaerobic environment and we lose all of our carbon. So when a cow walks across this field and takes a poop and then takes 12 steps and takes a urination, it's not mixing. And manure is very stable because it's all carbon. It dehydrates, the microlife in the soil come up, and it's hot lunch, man.
Grows mushrooms and everything.
Grows mushrooms, it becomes a food source for the birds, turkeys, pheasants, you name it, they come in, they tear them apart going after what's inside.
So not the same as the urinating.
Correct. Because in nature they don't do it. But man has decided we mix it and then we get methane. Enough said there.
Then that's controversial. That's
Everybody gets
political.
upset.
That's a campaign.
Yeah, everybody gets upset. But out here, the best fertilization, because the animals will take off about a quarter of what they put back on. So we can slowly rebuild our soil by strategically rotating those cows and having them add carbon here and urine here, so they don't mix.
So the carbon can be used by the plants that put it back in the ground.
And the animals and the critters that live in the soil. So we're feeding, the most important habitat we have on the planet is what's under our feet. And we know this much. We know more about space in the deep ocean than we do about the soil that produces our food. Right, John?
Right. Amen.
Okay, well, if the sound comes through, sound comes through. If you get in here and come look very close, you see all these little holes. And these are dung beetle holes. So shortly after the cow went, this got plopped. And if those of you where's the veterinarian, this is like the most perfect pie, right? It's nice and cylindrical, and we got the little dip from the last plop, right? And then, you want to hold this? Okay, first off, you saw how firmly attached it was to what it was plopped on. And then as we break this apart, and if you want to do the sniff test again, it smells like potting soil. And if you take these edge pieces that are really dehydrated and fracture them and tear them apart, you'll see all the tiny, tiny little fiber pieces. Because that's what's left over is a little bit of N, a little P, a little K, and carbon. Tiny, tiny little fragments of plant material that the bacteria in the rumen did not digest. And this is an indicator of a super, super healthy soil. Yeah, I know, everybody's just like, look at this. There's like angleworms in here. And, you know, this is just like awesome.
Look at that guy.
I mean, look, there's two of them. They're big fat ones. I think I interrupted them. Oh boy.
Okay, just think if you had that for
I have no idea, but now I'm embarrassed for them.
Petunias would have been.
Jeez, there's company and everything.
You were non-organic on them. Let's just say that. That blue stuff that we had, I 1 week is gone.
There we go.
Again, gone.
And now, Briar, share with what you've got over
right.
here going on.
So one thing you mentioned that we just know an infinitesimal amount of information about what's under our feet as far as life it goes. But John, he's always looking. He's got a shovel in his hand and he's digging. He's checking his underground herd is what he always says. So one fun fact is 1 acre of soil, so about a football field, can hold the equivalent of like 10 milking cows worth of soil organisms. So it pays to dig and check things out. One thing you can do here, this is more for soil erosion, but these little critters that live in the soil, they produce organic matter, and that coats the soil beds, and that can really help hold the soil together. So I took a piece of soil from my home farm on the ridge. This is 3rd year alfalfa, I believe. So if you go out in the field and you can pull up a clod of soil, it might be all stuck together because no one's soil's perfect. You just break it apart so that it's about the size of BBs. So you get these little pieces here, and you can take a sink strainer and a solo cup. This is NRCS approved. The federal government recommends this.
Purple
Technical.
solo cups.
Yep. So you just take that, and you plop it in there, and you look at your watch, and you wait 1 minute. All right, so you just wait.
Need an extra hand?
Yes, please.
This side or this side?
That side. Okay, get a nice clean side. So you'll just wait for a minute there, and it helps to have a clear cup sometimes because it's a little more exciting. You can see what's going on. But this is actually used by the professionals for soil test assessments, or soil health assessments, excuse me. So we're coming into about 1 minute. Now look at that cow pie first, and then look at this. All right. So that's all you're doing. After a minute of soaking it in the water, you're just going to splat it on kind of a clean object like that. And if it looks like a milking cow pie sitting in the middle of the alley, that's not really a good indicator of soil health. So Mary's been really talking up the soil after looking at this cow pie, so we're going to put it to the test.
No, we're learning more and more and more. And we have, I think, if we would have listened to some of the old folks in the day, and I'm talking back in the 70s and 80s when we really kind of, our agriculture focus started to shift, we really lost our crop rotations. And in the process of a crop rotation, we had perennial living cover for at least 3 to 5 years before it got 2 years of corn put on it. And so as we lost that rotation, we also lost a lot of the things that live in the soil because of some of the soil additives that we had. Do you want me to quick dump?
Yeah,
Here, you take that and you talk about now. This is John's soil?
Yeah, this is Scott Werline soil, rented by John. Gotta give credit where credit is due. So, yeah, I just took a little clod. It wasn't very cloddy, so I just took a handful of the granular pieces that we had there, put it back in the sink strainer, and we're going to see how it compares to that alfalfa ground from the ridge. And I think the soil type should be pretty similar here, both silt loams. We're lucky enough to have silt loams here in this part of the state. But yeah, that soil health, crop diversity really helps, as Mary C. mentioned. But it's mainly providing consistent nutrients, which is sugars from plants. Those microbes really need that. And air, that's the key. So if you want to take a look there, that's how it's supposed to look. It's supposed to look like wet cake crumbs rather than wet cow pie.
Yes.
So Mary C. was correct. I would say it's a pretty good looking soil. But
Crumbly. You like crumbly.
yes.
Lots of air pores, space. And what lives in the cow pie helps to dig tunnels down into the ground. And other things such as earthworms dig tunnels up through the ground. And those provide infiltration. Now when a raindrop hits the top of this hill, coming down at 180 miles an hour, depending on the downpour, where's it going to go? The only place it's going to lose its entire velocity going through the jungle, right? So when it hits the ground, the energy is diffused out and it's going to slowly seep and find a hole from something that's living up here in the soil. And then we get water infiltration instead of water runoff. So this is one big giant ridge buffer strip. And I would guess not a lot of water moves off this ridge unless you get 5 inches in 2.5 hours. Then even grass struggles with that to slow it down.
It's matting.
Yes. Beautiful though. Look at that, you guys.
So Scott, John, give yourselves a pat on the back.
Exactly. So a lot of the talk about, keeping a living cover on the soil helps to support that microbial life. So not only are we talking about the fungi, but also other bacteria and that type of thing. And they secrete the glomulins, like she mentioned, and that acts like a glue on the finest fractions of soil. So the sand, silt, and clays get stuck together by that microbial glue, which in turn then gets stuck together by plant roots and those fungal hyphae, so like the fungal roots. So it keeps building. So it's almost like Legos, In each individual piece is your sand, silt, and clay. Those continue to get stuck together to the point that then when a worm or something like that makes a channel, it has the structure to hold that up. So that's where we're getting that increase in infiltration. Those microbial glues are holding it together in that demonstration. So it's really key in not only grazing systems, but in regular crop rotations to try to minimize that disturbance to your microbial community, which is going to increase your nutrient cycling and in turn your infiltration, all that type of thing as well.
So does that support plant life? Like it helps it, like contributes to it?
Absolutely, yep. So the more microbial and fungal community you have in your soil, you're going to increase nutrient cycling. So especially nitrogen, carbon, you're going to be able to break down that organic plant material into available nitrogen. And then from the standpoint of phosphorus, you know, it's only becoming more expensive as a fertilizer, but our soils have a lot of phosphorus in it. If we support microbial communities, they're able to extract more of that phosphorus from the soil, whereas if you have, you know, a microbial deficient soil, we're going to have to apply most of that phosphorus in available fertilizer forms. Even from the standpoint of our synthetic fertilizers as well, you know, the urea that you apply, that's a microbial mediated process. Before it's available to a plant, microbes have to break that urea down into nitrate and ammonia that the plant can then take up. So even when you're applying fertilizers, you still need that microbial community.
What's the saying, John?
Symbiosis kumbaya.
Alrighty, I started in with some high tensile fencing with timeless posts. I really kind of like it. If I can get more of that in, I can less polyreel. And if the fence is there, I'm more apt to rotate when I should. But I mean, I tie it off and I sit in my gator and I drive away and let it unroll, and then I get to the end and I tighten it up and go back and put in some posts and good to go. Alrighty.
Is there anything special you got to do to?
So you're not predominantly black.
That doesn't impress me. Downhill does. There's one of those red cows right there. And she's 6, so she's 8 years old, so I kept her another year this year.
Good show.
That's what I kind of learned online too. That said it's easier to store water than energy.
Well, and depending on the size of your paddock, soon as somebody can't see the lead cow, the whole herd's coming. And when she goes for water,
Yeah.
they're all going with her.
This is where I calved this spring, just trying to add nutrients. There's a lot of brush here, but I've taken out more than what's here, I think.
When you have calving problems, how do you get the cow to buildings, or do you?
I had some of those portable gates set up right up here. It's kind of by the water, so I can, like, they're used to coming here. I shut a gate, set up some poly wire. I can usually get them in.
Jim Garish says let them die. She can't calve on her own. She's not worth the herd.
Yeah, but he's not up to losing $2,000.
Well, this year, right? You know, it's
Might be something simple.
Kit Darrow, Joe Fry all said the same thing. They've got to be.
No, that's not what they said. If they want medical attention, they'll come to the corral.
Well, a lot of how we have thought we should breed cattle is not necessarily the way cattle should be bred for them to be self-sufficient and not need us to get that calf out.
Right.
There's something to be said. If they're by the buildings all together, you'll have trouble. If you throw them out here and just look at them with a four-wheeler once a day, very rarely do you have trouble. You will have it, but not as much if they're by the buildings for some reason. You spread them out, you just have less trouble.
How deep do you think you'd have to go to get a sand point down in the bottoms?
12 feet.
Is that wet?
Yeah, it's
Up
wet.
by us, 500 feet. That's 50,000. 20 years ago, it was a fraction for the well. Not
Not anymore.
No, that's why I live in a 100-year-old house.
Efficiencies.
There we go. Should we make our way down the hill if there's no questions?
I think so. Yep.
What was here? A homestead was here prior?
Yeah, back in the day. I mean, I don't.
But that's why all the towns
There used to be a little shack somewhere along the road too, wasn't there?
Oh yeah. And then that's where the flooding comes in.
I
get it.
I don't know.
The best ones are marine batteries.
This brush growing out of a hole in the ground over here, that's the basement.
For the house?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the house.
Yep. Yep.
And then the windmill sat there.
Yep. And the barn was right back here.
So that was a granary, I assume.
Yeah, and there was a hen house. I remember the hen house was set up there alongside of it. But
What was this farm called?
it was a near farm. And it was called, Briar just discovered this looking at paperwork. It was called Meadowview Stock Ranch. Meadowview Stock Farm back in the early 1900s.
That's a nice name.
So now we got that road on some of the bailish down there, Cody. Meadowview.
Midnight. Panels. Back there that I made. Still in the flip phone. Some farm flickering on.
A lot of them don't have tags. No, right out in the pasture.
Like I said, it was never been.
Oh, no, I'm not sure of that because I can't recall.